Welcome back. Today, we're diving into an explainer that is literally going to change how you look at yourself. We're talking about a super specific, deeply introspective concept in Vedic astrology, Ketu in the first house. It's often called the detached identity. If you've ever felt like you're just kind of playing a character in your own life, or maybe you're always a step removed from the everyday hustle of society, well, stick around. The insights we're unpacking today are absolutely eye-opening. Right off the bat, before we even touch the formal definitions, I want you to ask yourself a huge question. Who are you when all labels disappear? Seriously, take a second. Strip away your job title, your relationship status, your background, your societal roles. What's left? Just you. This one single question is the absolute engine driving everything we're about to explore. So definitely keep it in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer because it is the key to unlocking the whole shebang. Section 1, the detached identity. Let's define the core concept. So what actually is Ketu in the first house? Well, according to our source material, it's a placement totally defined by two main things: identity detachment and natural spiritual inclinations. In this system, the first house usually represents you, yourself, your ego, your physical body. But Ketu is a point of release. It's all about letting go. So the crucial takeaway here is that when you drop that energy right into the house of the self, you get this natural, built-in distance from your own ego. You're just not fiercely gripping onto who you are in the traditional sense. Moving on to Section 2, the outsider experience. Phase 1, the external disconnect. People with this placement almost always feel different from others, and this starts incredibly early in life. We're not just talking about a quick phase of teenage rebellion here. It's a persistent baseline hum. From the playground all the way to the boardroom, there's just this quiet knowing that the way everyone else operates, the things they obsess over, the rules they follow, well, that's just not how you operate. And because of that persistent hum, you really have to wonder, why do you never fully fit into predefined roles? Think about it. Society absolutely loves putting us in neat little boxes, right? The overachiever, the rebel, the ambitious worker, the social butterfly. But for someone with this detached identity, those roles feel like wearing a totally ill-fitting outfit. You might try them on just to survive, but they never, ever feel authentic. You're always kind of hovering just outside the archetype. Naturally, because you don't fit neatly into those boxes, people notice. They might find you mysterious, difficult to read, or even emotionally distant. To the outside world, this external disconnect just looks like you being aloof. People might literally think you're intentionally hiding something. But the reality, your primary mode of existing just isn't fully tethered to the social, physical world around you. Which brings up a really fascinating mirror for self-reflection. Are you private by nature, or are you simply detached? Like, are you actively building walls and keeping secrets, or do you just naturally operate with a bit of a buffer between you and your external persona? A lot of the time, you aren't hiding at all. You just aren't fiercely attached to putting your identity on display. All right, Section 3, the shifting self. This is Phase 2, the internal shift. Our source material groups these into 4 powerful internal manifestations. First up, you might develop a really strong sense of detachment from your own identity. You kind of watch yourself almost like a third party, figuring out if you're discovering yourself or distancing yourself from yourself. Second, this naturally leads to repeated identity transformations over time. Because you aren't glued to who you were yesterday, you can just completely reinvent yourself. Third, and this one is tricky, you might underestimate your own unique talents and strengths. Why? Because your ego just isn't wrapped up in the things other people praise you for. And finally, there's a karmic tendency to withdraw during stressful periods. When life gets overwhelmingly loud, your first instinct is to pull back and protect your peace rather than fighting for dominance. Which leads me to ask, how many versions of yourself have you already outgrown? If you're resonating with this explainer, the answer is probably a lot. And listen, you need to understand that this isn't a sign of instability. It's actually a beautiful sign of non-attachment. You're constantly shedding old skins, because honestly, none of them were the real you to begin with. So, where does this shifting self get tested the absolute most? Partnerships. The source makes a great point that relationships can teach you profound lessons about self-definition. When you try to merge your life with someone else, your natural instinct to detach can either cause a ton of friction, or it can act like a giant mirror, showing you exactly where your boundaries end and theirs begin. Which brings us directly to this massive question. Do you actually know who you are outside of your partnerships? It is so incredibly easy to accidentally absorb the identity of your partner, your best friend, or a colleague, precisely because your own sense of self is naturally fluid. Maintaining your individuality here takes real, immense conscious effort. Moving into Section 4, redefining value and success. Phase 3, the evolution. As folks with this placement mature, a really stark contrast starts to emerge. It's worldly success versus inner freedom. You know that intense societal pressure to climb the corporate ladder, to accumulate all that status? Well, it starts looking remarkably unappealing when you put it next to the deep, quiet peace of true inner freedom. Ultimately, you might completely lose interest in fame, attention, or personal recognition. That burning desire for external validation, it just naturally falls away. The stuff that felt so important in your 20s, like being seen and acknowledged, often ends up feeling completely trivial as you mature. So, you really have to be honest with yourself. Does validation truly motivate you? For someone living the truth of this detached identity, the answer eventually becomes a hard no. Accolades are nice, sure, but they aren't the fuel in your engine anymore. You are seeking something way deeper. It really all boils down to accumulating status versus simplicity and minimalism. Are you piling up worldly baggage, or are you actively shedding it? Over time, the pull towards a minimalist, simple path becomes basically overwhelming. Less noise, less physical clutter, less ego. Just the essential, unburdened self. And finally, Section 5, the ultimate question. Let's bring it all together. The whole core theme of this journey is captured so beautifully in this thought from the source. The soul remembers that it is more than the personality. Really let that sink in. The personality, your ego, the stuff you like and dislike, those are all just temporary constructs. But your soul, it remembers that it is something far greater and so much deeper than whatever character you happen to be playing on the stage of life right now. And so, we're right back to the question we started with. Who are you when all labels disappear? Because for the detached identity, life is just going to keep asking this over and over again. As the universe keeps stripping away the roles, the fancy titles, and the need for external validation, what remains? It's a lifelong, incredibly profound journey of discovery. I really hope this explainer gave you a wonderfully clear perspective on this concept and maybe even some insight into your own path. Take this question with you today and just see what answers bubble up in the quiet moments. Thanks so much for learning with me today.